What's going on, legends? We are back here again at the one and only OPEX Gatwick. It is the calm before the storm. It is the 9th of April. Gyms reopen. It's Friday. Gyms reopen on Monday. Things are going to get super busy. Obviously, I've done a lot of video content in this lovely establishment. So I've been lucky enough to kind of have access to this kit and have access to space and have the ability to kind of continue the training program that I wanted to execute over the last few months over lockdown. So I've been incredibly lucky to do that. A lot of people haven't. A lot of you guys I know haven't. So what I want to do, there's a lot of stuff being bandied around at the moment about how to get back into gym training. I do think, even though it's quite a common thing, it is something I want to cover as well. I think there are a couple of physiological principles that are absolutely paramount that we need to adhere to if you want to get back into training properly, kind of a re-adaptation phase and avoid injury. And it doesn't matter if you're like, yeah, but I've been doing some stuff with a sandbag and a 20-kilo dumbbell. If you haven't been putting stress through your body in the same way over the last kind of 3-4 months, probably 8 weeks is kind of the time where certain stabilizers and certain kind of certain movements are going to start to atrophy and weaken. You do need to get back into the gym and get back into training properly in the right way. And there are a couple of principles, as I said, that are necessary to ensure that you don't just absolutely smash it for the first 4 weeks and then start to pick up a few niggles and start to feel tight and everything starts to feel weaker and then you start to develop some injuries. And that is exactly what I'm going to be going over with you guys right now. And step one for said careful plan and reintroduction to gym work, make your warm up a little bit longer than you would normally do. Be as thorough, or absolutely be as thorough, maybe even a little bit more thorough. But anything, the general kind of warming phase, if you're a fan of what I'm a fan of, getting warm first, then doing some mobility stuff, and then doing some kind of like movement drills. The warming phase, maybe just increase the amount of time that you would normally be on a rower or a curve runner, bike erg, whatever it may be, by about 20%, just to make sure you are nice and warm. Prep for the mobility stuff that again you might not have done for a while. A lot of whether or not we're happy with the way a session's going or a particular training cycle or our training in general is based on how it meets or how it compares to our own expectations. You need to park your ego at the door when you come back and realise that there would have been, again, this is for the people who haven't really been training as optimally as they would have liked over lockdown, there will have been a natural atrophy. So that is to say a natural kind of weakening over time. It might not be much, but just accept that it's there. And then if you're closer to the strength and fitness level that you were at, or if you are exactly the same level, then that's a bonus. But don't manage your expectations at the level that you plan on being and that you think you will be at exactly the same level of speed, strength, fitness, endurance, everything to how you were when you stopped training properly, around other people, enjoyed that gym environment a couple of months ago, because it's not going to be the case. So again, if you're like, right, I'll write off the first, and my kind of rule with this will be anywhere between probably 3 and 4 weeks. The first 3 and 4 weeks, and that's going to get me back up to scratch. Writing off those first 3 or 4 weeks and listening to your body a little bit more and allowing yourself to not quite be at the standard that you were is probably a good thing. Because otherwise, if you're continually being like, well, this is the last day that I trained flipping December, I was lifting this and I'm not lifting this today, that's annoying. That's not annoying. You just need to surrender to and submit to the fact that that is inevitable and that that's okay, because it ain't going to take long to get back. So it's not like the fitness is completely gone. Your body's just kind of forgot that that's what it needs to do. So write off those first 3-4 weeks and use them as an opportunity to kind of get back up to the level that you were. Longer warm-up done, and for me the static work and the mobility work It's exactly the same principle, man. You gotta realize you might not necessarily be as flexible as you were if you've hardly stretched over the last few months. And again, this might not be for you if you've been doing a lot more, been doing ROMWOD or yoga classes or Pilates or whatever, but for most of my clients, of which kind of I've got anywhere between 100 and 120 at any one time, I don't think that many people have been stricter with their training over the course of lockdown as they were before. Obviously, we're social animals, it's the way that we're wired. We want to be around other human beings, and exercise especially something that you always push yourself harder, in my opinion, and from my observations, my objective observations of others, when you're around other people that are doing exactly the same. So strengthening stuff is exactly the same, so mobility stuff is exactly the same as the warming. Take it a little bit slower, don't necessarily expect to have the same range of motion, don't force that, and just work with what you've got. Imagine your completely new body, it's completely different shape, size, dimensions and ability as it was a couple of months ago. Take it slow, man. 3 or 4 weeks to get back up to scratch, that's nothing. And if you do it properly, you will not get injured, and you will be able to continue for the rest of this flipping year, making sure that you do continue to get stronger and fitter, as opposed to smashing it for 3-4 weeks and then snapping your hamstrings. Might sound like a cliche, guys, but genuinely, in every time like this, you've got to think, if this is a crisis that you haven't trained for a couple of months and now you're only just getting back into the gym and you feel as though you lost some of your strength gains, you've got to realise that in every crisis there is a bit of there's an opportunity to do something. And again, it sounds cliche, it sounds bullshit, but if you do make that intellectual and that emotional shift into that kind of way of thinking, you'll be like, okay, so I've got this 3 or 4 week block that I've kind of allotted to myself to get myself back up to scratch. What have I always struggled with? And it's like, well, I always think one side, I'm a little bit asymmetrical. I've always got one arm stronger than the other, or one leg stronger than the other, or whatever. Use this time now as an opportunity to effectively kind of rebalance your body. If you've always struggled working at full range, but you've been really, really strong at the top end, but you haven't been able to get particularly deep squats, then the next thing, after kind of the longer warm-up, the second tip I'd give you, obviously, probably thought this was coming, is go a little bit lighter. But kind of combining something with that, I would say try and work at a range of motion, because you will be going lighter, work at a range of motion that is greater than that of what you normally do, especially with any lower body stuff. If you're okay at lunges, try doing some deficit lunges. So lifting that front foot up. If you're not particularly good at getting deep squats, again, try and go a little bit deeper. Just try and use this time, this 3 or 4 week block that you've given yourself, where the objective is not lift super heavy, kind of transition into an objective that is get better at something that's maybe been a weakness of yours for the last couple of years. And when you do that and you do start looking at things differently, this won't feel like wasted time or just a tick in the box exercise that you've just got to wait for this month to get that strength level back. You can be like, okay, now I actually have an opportunity of either 4 week time window to make this thing now, something that I was looking at as a negative, I actually can look at this as a positive and do something, use this time window to do something productive. Yes, boys and girls, so that is the warming section done. That is my mobility stuff done, my drills done, my McGill Big 3 done. If you do not know what the McGill Big 3 are, get Googling, it will save your spine a lifetime of pain. So now we are off back downstairs again at OPEX Gatwick to do some lifty, strengthy. So one of the things I was going to say in today's vlog is, do not do any exercises when you first go back for the first week or so that put too much pressure on your lower back. Your lumbar is definitely the most kind of sensitive part of your body, in my opinion. Anyway, the most easily kind of aggravated. But if it was me on the receiving end of that, I probably wouldn't listen. So what I'm going to do is change my tact. and say, if you are going to do it, go a little bit slower and maybe mix up.
Something else I can help with.
Shut up, Apple. If you are going to do it, maybe, obviously, definitely go a little bit lighter to start with. And secondly, maybe try and mix up the reps a little bit so you get some gain in a slightly different way. So on my program today anyway is 1.25 reps. So lifting up, pausing at the knee for a fraction of a second, dropping down and then going through a nice smooth rep, full range rep from there. Again, just works the body in a slightly different way, works the joints in a slightly different way, but the total amount of load, the total amount of weight you could lift for a 1.25 rep is obviously not the same as you could for a normal rep, so you'll be forced to go a little bit lighter. It's just a good way to kind of keep yourself accountable. Rubbing chalk up my nose and in my eyes there. It's a good way of keeping yourself accountable so you do not do anything stupid, which is what this video is all about.
Here we go now.
So there's the first section of my deadlift part of the training session done. And with the 1.25 reps that we're doing, it kind of combines two things. Again, it goes a little bit lighter, as I said, because you're not going to be able to lift as much as you could do if it was just one smooth rep. And the second thing is it does go slightly slower in a speed of contraction, especially when you're just getting back into it. I would calm down a little bit. And again, there's so many people who are like, I kind of get the science, I understand the principles, but I'm going to do things in my own way, which, that's cool, man. If that's what you want to be doing, fair enough. But you can't escape from the science and you can't fucking beat the system. If the principles and all the kind of the research and the medicine and the theory that's backed up, the quantified theory says, when you've had a bit of time away from working out and lifting, especially lifting, and you come back to it, these are the kind of principles you should adhere to. You are not a snowflake. You are not 1 in a trillion having a different genetic makeup than anyone else. You are as susceptible to the same principles and the same theory as everyone else. So please do this stuff because I care about you. And I don't want you to snap your spine and have your vertebrae flying out the back of your t-shirt during a deadlifting session like ninja throwing stars, killing everyone else in the gym. So one thing that I do in my deadlift training, especially kind of nice and consistent and congruent with our newfound objective to balance the body out as much as possible and use this time when there's an opportunity to do that, is as you just saw in the set of 4 there, I hook grip and go as heavy as I can hook gripping, and then when I need, because my hands are crap and not very strong, when I need to start split gripping, what I do is I basically break the set into 2 and I change the grip that I have. So I do right hand under for a couple, then right hand over for a couple. So I don't really take a break between. It's literally just enough to place the bar down, quick change of grip, brace, and then go again. And it's just a good way to make sure that you do not develop like this, even subconsciously, like a favorite side, because one side will feel a little bit more comfortable, always, as it does with me. But if you make sure that you have the same amount of kind of training volume on either side when you split gripping, it's a good way to make sure that you don't develop an imbalance. And then again, break yourself, because ain't nobody got time for that. It's done and in the bag. That's kind of the main strength lift for me today. And again, if you are going to jump into something that is fairly kind of lower back and lumbar heavy, that's a good way to do it. What I'm going to do now is, obviously we've talked about making sure the warm-up's a little bit longer, lifting a little bit slower and lifting a little bit lighter. And one good way, in my opinion, to kind of really, again, round out the human body and our physiology and our musculature when we've had a little bit of time off, is to do some paused reps. So I'm going to be going on and to do some unilateral stuff, some single sides, single arm, single leg stuff. I'm going to combine 2 of those principles now. I'm going to do some dumbbells, so it's a lot more unilateral than using a barbell, and I'm going to do some pause reps. So I'm going to do some dumbbell overhead press, nice and strict, but I'm going to make sure that I don't bounce down from the bottom down, reset at that bottom position before extending overhead. Check this out. So one thing I just did there on the dumbbell overhead set is I'm keeping the rep range a little bit higher than I normally would, and that's one of the benefits of going a little bit lighter. You can afford to do that. And again, with the pauses, down at the bottom, feels a little bit wobbly at the top, or feels a little bit wobbly throughout, to be honest, but that's a good opportunity for all the stabilizers that might not have worked for a while if you haven't been lifting properly to start kicking in. And again, in a month's time, if you do this stuff for 3-4 weeks, they're gonna be firing again properly, which means when you do start to pack a little bit more, I'm not saying you don't touch a dumbbell for 4 weeks at all. I'm just saying implement some of this stuff in your training program. It means when you do start to pack on the weights, back to kind of pre-lockdown numbers, all those stabilizers will be working again, which at the moment, if you go straight back in, trying to hit a fucking PB on week 1, day 1, they're not gonna be. And your body will not like you for that misplaced effort. So keep the reps a little bit higher, pause reps as well. It's just a good chance to kind of pack a lot of good quality kind of muscle and even muscle around the frame evenly. Best way to do things. So we've done some lower body and hinge work with the deadlift, done some upper body with the overhead. We're now back upstairs to the penthouse of pain. Oh my God, what an unbelievable name for a gym that would be. To do a little bit of functional hypertrophy. Again, more stability based than normal, higher reps than normal, between kind of 15s and 20s, and a little bit of conditioning work as well to go with it. Perfect reintroductory session. So I've got my next little hypertrophic section sorted. I'm gonna do, because I absolutely flipping hate anything in a front rack, because I've got 2 bones missing and a 3rd bone broken in my right wrist. First world problems, right? I'm not a massive fan of having anything in a front rack, but I want to get better at it and I want to start stretching everything out. And again, this is a good opportunity for anyone who's not particularly mobile in a particular exercise to jump straight back into that slowly. Again, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to be doing 15 basically front rack kettlebell front squats. So nice and light 15, but I'm going to touch and go at the top, effectively hips through, straight back down. But I'm going to have a very, very slight pause at the bottom, making sure that it's slow, making sure that it's not too bouncy straight off the bat when we come straight back to training, and also to make sure that we force a little bit of range at the bottom part of the movement. So I'm going to be doing 15 of those. I'm going to be putting them down, stepping straight back, and on the bar, I'm going to be doing some toes to bar. But again, I've been talking about going slower, so what I'm going to do is basically keep it strict. So there's no kind of kipping, there's no kind of overly quick cyclical movement. I'm going to do strict. So down, I'm going to completely allow a dead hang at the bottom, and then I'm going to lift the toes up to the bar slowly from there. So it's not with a kick, it's not with a kip, it's just super slow and super strict. So 15 squats and followed by 10 strict toes to bar. I'm really excited about it, can you tell? Let's go. That is that bit done. And now, pièce de résistance, the final little finishing bit. I'm gonna do some prowler, push and pull. As we see down here, guys, I'll take you on a little journey. So I'm a massive fan of these little straps that you get here. They literally cost, I heard about this from Andrew Tracy, AT, Senior Fitness Editor at Men's Health. They're like £2.50 each. So they're awesome for like farmers walk handles, everything, because you know they can take the weight, they can take about a ton. And I've been training for a while, but not quite there yet. Push the sled that one way, pull it back. I'm gonna do that twice, and then I'm gonna finish off with some rows with kettlebells, but paused right at the top. Again, nice and slow. As you can tell, that is kind of the theme of the day, and should be the theme of everyone's reintroduction to the gym, to lifting and to training properly. Take things slow, take things light, park your ego at the door for a couple of weeks, and give yourself a 3 or 4 week window to get yourself back up to scratch and work on what were your previous weaknesses and work on any imbalances. So this is the final little bit. Let's see how we get on. And there we have it, guys. That is, in my opinion, a good, well, I would say that because I wrote it, a good reintroductory session to the gym when you haven't lifted in a while. It shows that you can do the same kind of stuff, but just tweak the way that you do it slightly. A couple of different variables, higher reps, make sure you do a nice thorough warm up, lift it a little bit slower, lift it a little bit lighter, introduce some pauses, do some unilateral stuff to make sure everything's nice and stable. And one good example, especially with the prowler, one of my favorite things about a prowler as a lower body exercise is that it keeps the impact extremely low. So instead of like, if you haven't had any impact, any kind of like heavy eccentric load, any heavy, basically when you jump, when you land, if you haven't had any force going through your feet like that in a while, don't go back to the gym first session, start doing some jump lunges, fucking backflips and trying to land on one pinky toe. Ain't gonna work very well for you. Hope you did enjoy it, guys. Any questions, please do put it down in the comment section below. Please do give this video a big thumbs up. Please do like it. It does help me, helps the channel, helps us grow our community, gives me some motivation to keep putting out some content that I think is nice and good and helpful for you. And if you haven't done so yet, please do subscribe. Got some awesome stuff on the way. See you soon, ladies and gents.